I have a nightmare mother-in-law. She insults me, tells me I'm worthless, she doesn't want me with her daughter, and the craziest part about it, guys, she shows up at my work, and you won't believe what she does.
I've always considered myself successful, both in my personal and professional life. I'm a consultant at a big company, and I'm married to the love of my life, whom I've met during my work. My wife Linda had approached me to get consultations regarding the shopping brand that she started. Being a fresh businesswoman, she lacked experience and was quite unaware of the tactics to get her business to flourish. It was all professional at the start. However, things changed when I started to notice a visible change in her behavior. She regarded me as someone really trustworthy, and slowly I could tell she started to like me as a man. She was a charming woman, and her good personality eventually made me fall for her. Things went smoothly for us for the first few months until I met her mother. I'd always heard about her as a kind and caring mom, but very strict. That's how Linda described her, but after meeting her, I could not agree with anything that she said. The first meeting with her happened when she invited us to her home, and we were officially introduced to each other. Mia did not hide her dislike for me throughout the dinner, and her rude remarks were enough to boil my blood. My mother had also accompanied me to dinner. Mia starts mocking her dress, and then started to humiliate her by asking her questions about her marital problems. My mom informed her that my father had been dead for 5 years, but he was a loving husband and she lived a good life with him. This somehow triggered her, as after this she started insulting men and even threw indirect insults at my late father. After the meeting, I directly talked to Linda about her rude remarks and unfair behavior, but Linda started apologizing on her behalf. Seeing her cry, I forgave her mother, and that's how the topic was closed. I had reconsidered dating her after that, but my love for her made me ignore her family and just focus on her instead. I got busy with my job and had no time to meet her mother again, and even if I had, I'd always made excuses. Linda understood my situation and never insisted on me after that. Linda's business was also doing really well, and we continued to date, and my work was going even better. I was also given a promotion, and that's when another drama happened. We threw a small party to celebrate, and a lot of friends and Linda's close girlfriends were invited, along with our families. It was arranged at a nearby cafe, and the celebration was not really on a large scale, but still it was one of the happiest days of my entire life. And that was only until Linda's mom ruined the party. It all started when I was busy introducing my wife to my coworkers, and was having a good time when the manager of the cafe pulled me aside and complained about Mia's harsh behavior towards the waiters. I apologized on her behalf and asked them to ignore it for now. I had presumed that there would not be any problem since Linda also kindly requested that her mother not cause a scene. Just as I went to greet my friends, a loud shattering noise was heard, and I worriedly turned around and watched with horror as Mia started yelling at a young girl, asking her to apologize for slipping and throwing some juice on her dress. Just when I assumed the worst was happening, I was proven wrong as she slapped the girl with force, making her fall down. The girl ended up getting hurt because of the glass pieces, and chaos formed. My party, it was ruined. But what absolutely horrified me was my reputation getting ruined. I looked at my guests that were gossiping among themselves as my mother-in-law displayed such a horrible attitude. I rushed to the scene. The manager seemed furious and wanted to call the cops on her, and the scene was getting bigger, and I could not be more embarrassed. I tried to calm the manager as the party hastily ended, trying to evacuate the cafe to avoid further humiliation. I've known the owner for years, which, by the way, helped me get Mia out of there without them pressing charges, and I had to pay for all the damages that she's caused. That was the first time I've realized just how crazy the woman actually was. After that incident, I restricted Linda from meeting her mom often. Though it made me look like a bad person, I had no other way to maintain peace in my home and stay away from that wicked woman. Linda and I had already moved in together, and we were planning to marry each other by the end of the year. Her mom eventually got to know about this, and the very next day she intruded into our shared house. She told Linda to break things off with me and accompany her back to the house, but of course she denied it. What confused me was the woman quietly leaving after that. Her mom did not stay in contact with us for 2 months, but after that, Linda received a call from her to mend things and just let go of misunderstandings. Linda was happy to know that, so without questioning anything, she was again welcome to our house. Until our wedding, Mia did not cause much trouble except for the random digs at my job. She made fun of my consulting job so many times in front of her relatives, but for the sake of my girl, I ignored them. And soon we finally got married, and that's when Mia started showing her true colors, and from humiliating me at family dinners to mocking my financial status, she used all kinds of low tactics. It did not end there, but she slowly started brainwashing Linda and creating fights and arguments among us. Linda was easy to persuade, and she would often listen to her negative analysis, which in turn would cause conflict between us. I had to be the one to call her out for her bad deeds, but I knew what she was doing. She had not accepted us and wanted us to get a divorce, and she was doing it for the sole reason. Her dirty tricks also involved making Linda stop listening to my consultations regarding her business. Slowly, but eventually, Linda starts paying attention to her words, and that's how things got harder. Just a few months later, when Linda stopped asking me, she lost a big chunk of her investment in her business. I had already warned her, but she had previously ignored my warnings. Anyways, after that, my wife stopped paying attention to her words, so Mia decided to play another trick. A house party was held, and her relatives were also invited. Even though Linda was married and I was present, Mia brought a guy and started to introduce him to Linda right in front of me. The situation was so aggravating that it made me lose all control. She had been insulting my job and praising the guy right in front of my wife, so it was natural for me to lose my calm. I yelled at that woman, and of course another drama was created in front of the family. There was nothing to hide anymore, guys. Our bad relationship was openly exposed in front of everyone. The woman got furious and tried to throw the glass of wine she was holding at me. I dodged it left-right. Murmurs and gasps filled the backyard as the woman started screaming like a crazy person and tried to charge towards me. A few people held her away, and I knew my mother was an absolute psychopath, so I immediately left the house with my wife. Rather than taking my side, however, my wife started to fight with me. I was stupefied by the occurrence of the event, and Linda and I were talking and shouting at each other. Our neighbors probably heard us too, but we were both so angry to even care at all about any of that. That was the first time we had our first serious fight, and all because of my wicked mother-in-law. Linda and I did not talk to each other for days, and back then I had no idea that even this was her mother's doing, as she kept feeding her well-intentioned stories and making her drift away from me. But I decided, let's play it safe. I took Linda out for dinner and reconciled with her, and just with one dinner, I failed all her evil plans. And we were both fine again, and maybe this was the reason her mother showed up at her house again the very next morning. I ignored her presence and continued to eat my breakfast. However, she approached me with a fake sorry expression as she started apologizing for her bad actions. But I knew better than that. Linda could fall on her fake innocence, but not me. I knew there must be a reason for her to be here, and I was proven right the very next morning. She talked about how she wanted to throw another party for us to celebrate our wedding, which she never did, and she wanted to make up things that she did. I knew it was calm before the storm, and the woman was up to no good, I'm telling you. But of course, my naive wife again fell for her empty words, and she wanted us to get along well, considering it was a golden opportunity. Completely unaware of her mother's intentions, she eagerly agreed and gave me no option but to refuse. And that's how I was forced to attend the event of the wicked woman's house, which was like the last master plan of her evil mind could come up with, and she succeeded in getting what she wanted. Update number 1. So, guys, it happened on a Saturday evening. Linda had called me to let me know that she would go early and that I should be there by 6. Well, I agreed, not knowing what was coming next, and I did my office work and managed to get 2 more high-profile clients. A successful day at work was wrapped up, only for me to meet a disastrous night. My wife had instructed me to buy flowers as a peace symbol for that crazy woman, so I complied, as I had nothing to lose. If she acts humanly, then it's better for us all. We also started to share good news with everyone. Anyways, I reached the old woman's house and found it already filled with guests. A lot of people were stunned to see me, especially after what happened the last time. I ignored everyone and looked for my wife, whom I found chit-chatting with one of her cousins. I greeted them and was still in the middle of talking when the woman showed up, though she called it for a party. The theme and decorations were completely different from how they should have been, and I was right because suddenly everyone wished her a happy birthday and the party was not about us like she said. I looked at my wife, who just seemed equally confused, but decided to take it positively, saying the party might be for both of us. How delusional. I watched the woman with all her smiles until her gaze landed upon us. She walked towards us with a mocking smile. I knew what came next. I stayed calm as she approached us, and of course the first thing she said was that she thought it was a good idea to celebrate her birthday too. Linda bought into her excuse, and when I gave her the flowers, the woman threw them away, saying she was allergic to them. My patience was running thin. After that, she simply disappeared, leaving us alone, standing awkwardly there. I knew it was a bad idea in the first place. Linda tried to stay optimistic until the very end, and the whole time she never announced that it was some sort of congratulatory party for us all. So suddenly, Linda caught everyone's attention and announced her pregnancy. The woman was livid. She did not waste 2 seconds insulting her for her bad choices, which were apparently mine. And of course she then started dragging my poor background into it. It was true that I lived my life struggling as a kid since my parents were not rich, but I've worked hard enough to be where I am today. So her silly insults did not hurt my pride at all. I watched her continue to make fun of me, and then she started comparing me to her wealthy background. I knew I was no match for that wealth, but I was doing well. So when she started laughing at my job, I've had enough. I told her to shut up with no underlying respect, and she started to call me names and asked me to get out of her house. This time I walked out without looking at my wife either, and I was going to end this drama for once. I've made up my mind. Update number 2. My idea was to make Linda herself, choose what she wanted and see how toxic her mother really was. So I did not contact Linda for a few days, and she stayed at her mother's house. The whole family knew how crazy she was, and we were the talk of the town. People were already speculating that we were going to divorce. And Mia was throwing feast left and right, smugly enjoying the chaos. I was busy working when I get a call from my mom that Mia had invited her to her house to talk about something important. That's when I decided to pay them a visit. I quietly reached the house and parked my vehicle. I could hear yelling even before entering the house, and I saw Mia crying her hearts out as Linda comforted my mother and packed her things to leave. Mia seemed to be shouting all kinds of insults, but what boiled my blood was her dragging my dead father into her hatred train again. Linda had told me that her father and mother never had a good relationship. She also informed me that the reason for her parents' divorce was her mom's insufferable personality. She would always fight with her dad and was never ready to compromise on anything. Her arrogance came from her wealthy background, and she had some kind of superiority complex. So, she had some deep-rooted hatred for men in general, and so when the first time she met my mom and tried to badmouth my father, my mom cut her off very firmly and described how satisfied she was with her marital life. This only fuels her crazy mother's jealousy, and she feels an unreasonable hatred for him too. I watched as my mom strides towards her and slaps that woman right across her face as she yelled at her not to say a word about my dad. Linda was too shocked to even act. And before things could get any more physical, I intervened. My mom completely broke down. As she latched on to me, I just looked at the woman who was busy throwing daggers at us with nothing more than hatred. I looked at my wife after that as I questioned her about her decisions. if she was going to stay with her mentally ill mom or was going to accompany us. Mia had expected to follow like a puppet, but Linda picked up her bag and quietly followed us outside, ignoring the yells and screaming of her mother. After this, Linda did not keep contact with any of her, and our lives finally got a bit of peace, or so I thought. But again, I was soon to be proven wrong. Update number 3. It's been 2 weeks, guys. I was at work, and I had a very important meeting with one of the top clients of our company. I was busy discussing some papers and giving them statistics of the area as I gave them financial advice and information regarding their newly found business company. And another area, I was too immersed in work, but suddenly there was a loud argument and hostile comments heard as if people were fighting outside. Well, I was confused and a bit disappointed to be interrupted during such an important meeting, but thankfully it was the near of the end for the meeting. So I hurriedly concluded my stance and thanked my client, and he walked out. Just when I was going to relax, a wild-looking woman appeared. I frowned at seeing my mother-in-law standing in my office looking disheveled and furious, and I was so confused when she started to move towards my office table and started throwing things left and right. She broke the lamps in the office and tore through tons of papers. When I tried to stop her, she started hitting me too. I pushed her away as I called for help, and the woman had lost her darn mind. After destroying everything, she walked to the hallway where a big crowd had now formed and started insulting me. She started to mock me for my background and the job that I was doing, and she continued to throw dirt on me and attack my job, calling it a joke and not worth it. I watched her spout nonsense about my relationship and stare at me, talking about me being a terrible husband to her daughter. Well, I was embarrassed, but I had no idea that it was actually her who was being embarrassed and nobody was siding with her. Everyone was thinking of her as if she was a lunatic who broke free from the asylum. She was in the middle of insulting and harassing me when my boss showed up. I could not be more mortified as I watched her spit the same things about me in front of him. Everybody was watching the scene unfold with horror. I thought I was definitely going to be fired, and just then, a bunch of security guards arrived, and I saw her fighting hysterically with them and calling me degrading names. Yet all I could hear was my boss telling the security to throw her out for insulting senior management. I watched her being dragged out as she continued to struggle and was finally thrown out of the building. My boss later summoned me to his room and inquired about the situation. I told him all about the crazy woman and her bad deeds, and my boss concluded that no matter what, she damaged a lot of property at our workplace and this could not be ignored, and they were going to take legal action against her. Well, I agreed, and was very thankful that they were taking my side and were being so supportive, but when I got home, I told my wife the whole ordeal and she was shocked. Linda, however, supported my decision and was even ready to file a case for physically assaulting me and also stripping her of her father's property. She was finally ready to break free from her torturous hold, so in just 2 days we filed a case and initiated the legal proceedings. Update number 4. It was not a struggle to prove Mia guilty. Throughout the years, she had harassed us enough, and her last attempt to harm me at my workplace was one of the biggest pieces of evidences against her. However, Mia was not ready to accept the defeat that easily. So, before the hearing, she showed up at our house, and she met Linda and reminded her of all the struggles that she faced taking care of her all these years after her dad left her. She made sure to use her tact and emotional sob stories to manipulate her, but Linda knew too her dad was forced to leave. Her mother hated men and was tired of living with her dad, so she kicked him out and got her custody using power. Not only that, she never even allowed Linda's dad to meet her. And even if Mia thinks that she hid well, she wasn't that sly, as Linda discovered the truth very early on when Mia was once busy celebrating her celebration and separation and mocking her father. It was a memory she'll never forget, so when Mia noticed it wasn't working, she starts to cry about her old age, poor health, and whatnot. I let the mother and daughter have their time and simply did not interrupt it, as I waited for my wife to make the best decision. Just when Linda told her she wasn't going to take back the charges, Mia grew feral and pushed her forcefully. She yelled and yelled nonstop, calling her an ungrateful thing and whatnot. I hurriedly held her and protected her from the crazy woman's attacks. I called the cops on her and Mia was arrested. She herself made things easy for us, so when a week later we won the case and she got convicted for assaulting me and my wife and damaging the property of my company, we could not be happier. She was not only put in jail but also fined a heavy amount, and that's how I finally got rid of my toxic mother-in-law. Mia stayed in jail for a few years, but then we revived a call unexpectedly when we were informed that she was transferred to a mental institute as she was no longer considered sane. She would attack anyone who was happy or just in a good mood, and her jealousy ruined her life. We were given the legal rights to the property she owned, and I didn't use any of that money, but rather encouraged Linda to use it to expand her business. I was happy and satisfied with my job. I had worked hard to get the degree, and I believed I could go higher and achieve more on my own. I didn't need any help. But very true to my beliefs, I was promoted again by my boss for excellent service. I could not be more proud of myself, no matter how much that woman tried to tear me down for my job. I got so much in life because of it, and Linda, as expected, confided herself to using my advice. And her almost ended business again flourished. I finally got rid of my toxic mother-in-law and was able to focus on my life and work even more.
Alright, so that story, I don't know, let me ask you guys, out of all the mother-in-laws we talked about, do you think that ranks in the top 10 of the most insane mother-in-laws on the channel? Let me know if you guys remember any of the mother-in-laws we've talked about in these stories. Go ahead and drop a comment down below and tell me who you think was the #1 mother-in-law. I actually have a playlist on the channel you can go and watch that has all mother-in-law related stories, and oh man, I was thinking back to some crazy ones. Remember that one story about the lady who killed her son's parrot because she did not believe that her son should be with a guy? She wanted him to marry a woman so he can have babies. She didn't agree that he was gay. So she goes and kills his parrot, a parrot that he's had for like 20 years. I'll try to link the story down below, but go check out that playlist, guys, and let me know who you think is the most insane mother-in-law. Now, let's get back to this story. I could not imagine being in this position. Just imagine someone marching into your workplace, causing a giant scene, and it turns out it's your mother-in-law, and to top it off, you were in a very important meeting. Guys, let me know your thoughts about this in the comment section down below. My name's Mr. Reddito. Thank you for joining me today. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya.